Hello and welcome to the Granger Podcast. I am your host, Kirk Bjorland, City Administrator. On this podcast, we'll provide current updates on businesses, schools, public interest projects, and more.
We've secured $9 million in total funded grants for communities since inception. And that's since 2021. That is a 28 times return on investment for membership dues that's been paid. So in any given year, we're administering or bringing in or touching $12, $13, $14 million a year.
Well, welcome back to the Granger Podcast. I'm Kirk Bjorland, your host. Today with me is Andrew Collings with the Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance. Andrew, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good. Let's kind of jump right in. You and I had a little bit of a history, me coming from Southern Iowa and local government, having worked with the Southern Iowa Council of Governments, and I believe you had a history there. You might tell the listener a little bit about the Planning Alliance, what you do, kind of what you focus on, who you partner with.
Yeah, sure thing. Again, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So the Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance is an organization that is solely focused on supporting cities and counties in a wide variety of community development activities. So you mentioned previous history of the Southern Iowa Council of Governments. Yep. So MIPA, or the acronym for Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance, is an organization that is very much COG-like. We're not an official COG just yet because you have to be listed in state code to do that. But if you have to look at our peer organizations, it will be the Council of Governments all across the state. So A lot of the COGs do very similar things to what we do and vice versa. So that's really where we're oriented, is to be that regional entity to support cities and counties and a lot of the activities that they do. We are a planning organization, so that's one question we get a lot is, do you do engineering? Do you do this? Do you do that? No, we're planner focused. Out of the 6 people in our office, 5 of us all have planning degrees from Iowa or Iowa State. So that's really where we excel, and we also are very open, as planners usually are, to supporting communities in the context that they need. So when we're talking about the things that we do, oftentimes I'll refer to communities and ask what they want to do, right, and what their needs are. So really, when we talk about what we do, it's more of what do communities want us to do,
right?
And so how can we solve problems? How can we find funding? And in that context, we're supporting our communities.
Yeah. As we start off, you may define a little. So there are regional council of governments around the state. What counties or what areas are you most focused on?
Yep. So we are serving the 7 counties that are not part of another council of government. So it'd be Polk County and all the surrounding counties, not including Madison or where Winterset's at, even though we do work with them on a couple of different things. So it'd be Boone County, Story County, Jasper County, Polk County, Dallas County, Warren County, and Marion County.
Okay, great. Great. So what would a typical city, and in my case, what would we look to your organization to help with?
Yeah, so there are a couple of different ways to approach that. First is that MIPA as an organization itself, right? You would look to us if you, had questions about anything community development related, and we'll lump housing, transportation, economic development, but not from the city side, not necessarily from the business side.
Right.
All of that would be lumped together. Vertical, horizontal infrastructure is something I like to say that we excel at. And so those kinds of questions, you come to us. We're really problem solvers. So it's like, what's the problem? How do we come up with a way to help alleviate that issue or solve the problem? And it can be infrastructure related. It can be more social context. It doesn't really matter to us. But beyond just MIPA itself, MIPA is an umbrella organization for a few other different entities / programs. So we have like a little handout that I use even for myself as a cheat sheet.
Right.
And so we have what we call our affiliated regional partners. So we have transportation. So that is the Central Iowa Regional Transportation Planning Alliance.
Okay.
That organization is responsible for about $6.5 to $7 million in federal transportation funding each year. So MIPA is the staffing agency for that. If it was workforce related, it would be Central Iowa Workforce Development Board. That is about $2 million in federal funding. And so that one looks to case management and supporting dislocated workers, youth and adults, and upskilling and being able to get gainful employment.
Right.
If you're within Polk County, which I know you're not, but
we're both.
That's true. That's both.
And actually, if you look at our recent annexation that we've either done or are doing, we have probably about 1,200 acres.
Okay.
In that Polk County side.
Good to know.
Where we're heading. And actually, we have a 47 lot executive development that we're wrapping up. We've recently approved a plat, and so we see the Polk County side will be pretty active for us in the future.
Good deal. So to that point, we also operate a owner-occupied repair program for suburbs within Polk County.
Okay.
So you might be participating in that at some point in the future, but those are all the suburbs. Receive funding from Polk County Housing Trust Fund and other sources to do owner-occupied repair, roofs, siding, that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then our 3 housing trust funds, so state-certified housing trust funds. They are all nonprofit 501c3s with their own boards and own funding sources. But those 3 housing trust funds brings in about $1.5 million in state funding.
Okay.
Central Iowa Housing Trust Fund, which is Boone, Jasper, Marion, and Warren counties. Story County Housing Trust, and then Dallas County Local Housing Trust Fund. So they all cover those individual areas, and they also provide funding to a wide variety of housing activities. It's kind of unique. Housing trust funds get money from the state, matching it locally, but those funds can be pretty much used for whatever purpose it's housing related.
Okay.
It's up to the local housing trust fund to decide. So each one is unique and different.
Right.
They all provide owner-occupied repair services, but some also delve into homelessness, rapid rehousing, supporting other housing activities. It just really depends.
Right. So who might your typical client be? For the listener, is your client working with the city? Is your client working with a developer who's looking at housing opportunities? Is it working with local organizations? Who typically is your primary client?
So MIPA itself is going to be the cities and counties. So it's always going to be the client is the municipality or county that we're working with. So we do work with different organizations at the behest of communities, a city or county, but directly that'll always be first and foremost.
Right.
Through some of these affiliate organizations, they'll differ a little bit. Central Iowa Housing Trust Fund works really well, for example, with Habitat for Humanity organizations in Boone, Marion, Jasper, Warren counties. Dallas County Housing Trust Fund works actually directly with homeowners themselves and does owner-occupied repair through a contractor, but that is their clientele is the people.
Right.
And Story County Housing Trust is kind of a mix of both. So it really just depends, but typically will be a city or county, but depending on the program can be people or organizations directly.
Right. Any exciting success stories recently you want to talk about and elaborate on?
Yeah. So the biggest, well, probably not the biggest, but the one that exemplifies the things that we do the most would be last year, Story City received an EDA, Economic Development Administration, and that's federal, not state, a U.S. EDA grant for water, sewer, road infrastructure within their industrial park, bringing in a manufacturer, supporting about 35 new jobs, $16 million in private investment. And as being as an economic development district for Central Iowa, having that designation from the United States Economic Development Administration, that is part of our job is to shepherd projects from the ground to fruition, that vertical horizontal infrastructure we talked about. And again, though, that money does go directly to cities and counties to support public infrastructure. Being a federal agency, they don't give money directly to businesses. Right. So that money will always go to infrastructure or, depending on the program, a business incubator, that sort of thing. But that is a success story. We have a couple of more applications in the works. We're hoping to have this next year have a couple more, groundbreaking ceremony and getting more infrastructure for more jobs and more growth. And besides that, though, we also have a couple of good projects through the state's CDBG program, or that's Community Development Block Grant. I apologize. Planning does a lot of acronyms.
Yep.
But what that's doing is working through the city, has to always be through the city, but working with building owners and fixing up facades in the downtown.
Okay.
So that is, buildings that need tuck pointing, new windows. We call blight. Not necessarily a blight that you might be thinking of where it needs to be torn down, but we call light blight where it's things that are broken, need repaired, crumbling, a lot of tuck pointing, a lot of brick masonry needs redone.
Right.
But that is directly investing into downtowns of communities. And we have 3 of them going right now in Knoxville, Pella, and Nevada. So we're excited to see those kind of finish up this year. And kind of looking for the next set of projects with that.
Yeah, and we have, and I'll kind of use this opportunity to give you an update on us in Granger. So and give me, we'll just get some live feedback here. One of our focus points is how do we revitalize and resurrect our downtown? So one of the previous podcasts, I had a couple gentlemen on the podcast who longtime Granger residents, very key and influential participants in our annexation and bringing their farms into the community. Because back in the past, there were, car dealerships and implement dealerships and 2 or 3 grocery stores and a butcher store. And over time, there's been that draw to the metro, and we've become a little bit of a bedroom community. Now, we did some exciting things. We Fairway just opened, 21,000 square foot new store, and it opened the middle of December. We have a new school being built, new 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that, if I do my job, will expand into a high school into the future. We've built a new water tower, running new roads, but one of our focus areas is on that downtown. And to kick that off, we're looking at how do you revitalize the downtown? So several years ago, the community of Granger passed a bond issue, a vote to build a public safety building. While we were getting bids and it was right after COVID and bids were coming in, and they ended up coming in a little bit high. And at the same time, the school bond issue had passed, and we decided at the time to pause the public safety building and invest our funds into a new road to the school. And we did that just for a debt capacity purpose, that we didn't want to raise taxes, and we're going to kind of layer in some projects. And so now that project, although the street isn't fully completed, will be in spring and early summer. The new school will open next fall. So we're looking at transitioning back downtown, and how do you get that public safety building built that would house fire, EMS, police, and for a time, we're looking to also have it house City Hall. Reason for that is we have a vision of taking Main Street, where the current City Hall is. We have a brick garage where Public Works is located, and it's just a small building where they do some maintenance and they keep equipment downtown for easy access. But then you have City Hall and you have fire and EMS. Our goal is to start that revitalization with us, is how do you put that piece of real estate back on the market? Goal being, we would incentivize a developer and a buyer to purchase the property. We would incentivize to tear it down and build back. The goal being, how do you get rid of the 10 building that we're in? And nothing wrong with it, or I shouldn't say nothing wrong. It presents itself okay. We do have some water problems and drainage problems into the building, but the goal is, it's not what we see for the vision of the future of the community. So we're looking at, we'll we'll put that most likely included into our TIF district that we have that will allow us to do some tax things to incentivize. And the goal being, if you do nothing, you get nothing. But if you incentivize and say, hey, purchase this for X amount of dollars, we'll incentivize you to do that. And if you build back within a certain amount of time, which we would require, build back and maybe you put in a 3-plex or a 4-plex that has, it could be a restaurant, it could be a dentist's office, it could be a flower shop, then that will start the kickoff. Now, later this week, I meet with another business that has a building downtown that they're inquisitive about how do they participate. Any of your programs, I know that I'm having discussions with the state and their downtown Main Street programs, but how might MIPA or any of your partner organizations get involved in something like that?
Well, congratulations on a lot of work to your downtown, taking a lot, which is good to see. You're right. You do nothing, you get nothing. As a planner, I would always call back to what is your comprehensive plan say,
correct.
What does the community want? And you referenced that. So it sounds like you've kind of gone through that process already. So the downtown Main Street program is important. I'm sure you're talking to Jimmy T about all the funding available. Kind of the approach you're taking, though, probably doesn't align super well with some of the funding resources that they have.
Okay.
A lot of their stuff is going to be, revitalization of existing buildings. How do you do upper story, right? How do you, convert those old apartments into new apartments to open up the housing? Renovations to the interior, which are still, you have buildings that would qualify for that.
Correct. Yep.
So that is a first step. The state does have resources, and they are very invested into downtowns of smaller communities. There's a lot of them, and they have a lot of resources available. So that's a first good step. The other part is just kind of layering. I'm not saying that right, but that's all right. The different types of funding sources. So while the funding sources you're going to talk to through Jimmy T are state oriented, there are federal oriented sources as well through the state, but a different department. So when you talk about facade, right, one thing to note is that that's the exterior of a building, the building that faces the street. But when you have federal money, as with everything, there will be contingencies. And one of those, for example, is you can't do any work to the building while you're doing the outside facade. So if you plan on structuring, funding from different sources in a way to revitalize a building, you got to do it the right way. So that's really where we come in, because we try to take a holistic view of the building, how is it going to get done, identifying the resources, and then layering them appropriately. Because if you start down one road, you may find that you're not able to go down another, and you want to make sure that you don't screw anything up along the way. So that's really where we step in addition to being grant experts, so writing grants, administering grants, especially the federal side, but we still have a lot of state grants that we work with as well. So,
and that's the exciting part. I wanted the listeners to hear that is there's a lot of technicality that comes into this, and so revitalizing that downtown isn't just the city. We have individual owners on Main Street that have ideas and visions, and we have developers as well. Probably one of the most exciting things about Granger is we're getting the opportunity to mix the new with the existing. So just a block to our east from City Hall, from the current City Hall, and from Main Street is a new business park where you have several vacant lots, you have the new fairway, you have some good development that is occurring down on the south end. Absolute Group has recently expanded. Artistic Concrete just finished up. Godwin Group is putting up flex space. Ballard 5 just put up their new building. So we have a lot of fun things happening. And then across the road, the Reader organization owns 40 acres that we are pursuing convenience stores and other retail mixed use. But you pull back to that Main Street, and that's key for us. And how do you revitalize it? How do organizations such as yourself get involved? And you mentioned what I wanted you to is guys like me have a lot of great ideas. It takes organizations like MIPA how do you put it together? Where do you find the expertise? Where do you find the funding? And then once you find the funding, how do you administer that so you're going about the project appropriately?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The sooner the better you involve those sorts of organizations, you can kind of head off some of the issues that, you might find otherwise, because you have projects that with the state may allow different things that the feds won't.
Correct.
Typically, when you go out to bid for a project with a federal project, that's it. If you've already gone to bid, you can't get federal money for a project unless you're Congress, and then you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Right.
But typically, you're kind of hamstrung to that. And then you have some state programs that you can be already out to bid and still get money. And I think a lot of communities kind of confuse the two and think, I can do one with the other, and then come to find out, no. You should have been doing this a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, rather than now. And so that's where we try to really step in early. A lot of the work that we do is related to comprehensive plans, zoning, making sure your zoning's up to code and up to speed to be able to handle the kind of growth that you want to do.
Right.
So that's where the planning side we come in. Really rely on those engineers, though, for cost estimates. They do great designs, and architects as well. So we kind of partner with everyone that we can to make that work.
Right. It's exciting for the Granger community, and I'll kind of make a plug for the listener. As you came in and we were talking prior to the podcast, I would venture to say, and a lot of communities, others who listen to this are probably going to challenge me with this statement, but I have the luxury of teaming with Bob Veenstra. Granger was Bob's first city as an engineer, and he's been with us his entire career. I met Bob in 1990 when I started with the city of Lamoni as city of Lamoni city administrator, and engineers were Veenstra and Kim. I would venture to guess that of any two people, city leaders in the metro, who are overseeing economic development, we could keep pace with any of them. Mainly because the city has done a good job of planning, of managing debt, of aligning infrastructure with that strategic plan, overlaying a land use plan. Now, we don't have the momentum that some of our larger partners do. So I don't want to I don't want to be challenging them on that. But for someone coming to the table with something new on a blank slate, and we have available land, we want to partner with organizations such as yourself so that we're a one-stop shop. That when you come to the table, we have the available land and we have infrastructure nearby. We can answer all those questions of what's the zoning, what are the setbacks, what access do you have to gas, water, sewer, electric, what are the building permits and platting processes. And so I feel really good about that. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on so that we could talk and to get information out to the listeners is so we can learn a little bit more about MIPA. What are the things that you provide? How can communities such as Granger utilize and leverage organizations like MIPA? Yeah,
so the nice thing for us is we have a very defined area that we work in. So different from a traditional engineering or planning firm, and no knock to them, but they kind of operate, where they need to. They'll be in multiple states or multiple parts of states, which for good reason. We really, when we say we work within 7 counties, well, 8 if you include Madison, we really do. That's it. So we really focus on our core communities, the ones here in the region. And so we are doing a better job of reaching out proactively, I think. We're going to continue make that a better thing. But really for communities listening, it's really reaching out to us ahead of time. It's hard though, and I know from a local perspective, from your perspective, you're not thinking about that all the time. You're really thinking about how to put out this fire, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah.
On a day-to-day basis. And we're trying to fill that kind of longer term. Oh, did you think about this? What about this
Correct.
a year from
Yep.
now? And so, the more we get ingratiated, the better that will be. And I will note, being a newer organization, getting formed in 2021. So we're 5 years old, but we were under the Des Moines MPO for a couple of years. So we've really been on our own for less than 2 years.
Yep.
So been growing quickly and being able to do more for communities. That's how I put it. We're not growing, we're doing more.
Right. Yeah.
So we really try our best to reach out, but we can't be everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting. I want to kind of circle back a little bit. Part of my excitement of being up at Granger is the community's done a really good job. When you look at us attracting, and a lot of times we are focused on what is the current project or item, in the community, and sometimes it's putting out fires. A lot of times it's just dealing with the daily operations with the community, anything from roads to parks to libraries to solid waste, barking dogs. But we spend a lot of time chasing deal flow. Where is that next business? Who's that next developer that we're chasing and pursuing to bring to town? The exciting part that I wanted to note is we can cut through the bureaucracy in Granger. If you bring a deal to us and it meets the typical needs of an economic development project, we're really good at partnering with organizations like yourselves to answer those questions, to bring the right people to the table. I think that we can compete. I don't want to necessarily say that we're better than others in the metro, but I think don't look past the small community. We know that we're in the crosshairs for growth, and we want to be at the table with organizations like MIPA and previous podcasts. We've talked Polk County Conservation and a lot of exciting things happening up in our area. Now the opportunity for us is how do we leverage more projects, bring MIPA and other organizations to the table to advise? What are the revitalization areas? You mentioned CDBG. In the past, I've utilized CDBG funds and RISE funds. How do you run infrastructure? How do you pursue a business and rebuild the road or build the road to that existing business? Much experience, those the type of things that you guys also do, RISE grants and...
So typically not RISE. We will oftentimes promote them. They're pretty fairly simple process, and the engineer can usually take care of that pretty quickly. Yep. One of the things that we try to do is not reinvent the wheel. If there's already a resource for a community that can do it better, we're not gonna try to do that. Yep. One thing we do bring to the table though now is EDA. EDA can also fund roads for new infrastructure. U.S. EDA is the only federal agency that will invest for purely economic development purposes. If you look at HUD, if you look at FEMA, economic development might be incidental to what they do, but they have other things that they're trying to accomplish. And so EDA can really come in and go, how many jobs are you creating? Okay. How much private investment? All right, make an application. Right. And it's a different process for them on how they award on funding. Right. But for our region, one of the big benefits that we provide is we create a comprehensive economic development strategy, or CEDS, again, that acronym. And that's the thing that makes our region available to apply to EDA funds. Okay. Before that, we were really not eligible. Yep. And that was one of the big impetuses for creating MIPA, was to bring that eligibility, which is why I highlighted Story City earlier as a big win, showing that value. So the more MIPA can promote EDA and finding ways to utilize those funds, the better. And the reason why is because in this region, there just hasn't been the opportunity to apply. And so it's kind of an educational thing. Yep. I'm always touting it. I feel like I'm beating that drum a little too much, but sometimes you get disaster supplementals and you get a lot more money than you typically would. And that's kind of where we're at right now. So
good segue. What are there programs you'd like to promote, or what's kind of your typical I want to make sure that I'm reaching out and maybe this podcast is reaching some of those communities that aren't as active in economic development, or they aren't looking for MIPA. What would that typical community who isn't looking your way, why would they look your way? And maybe a quick plug for MIPA on why they should do that.
Sure thing. So one, as an organization that's created to serve cities and counties, the one thing that I always point out is that we are truly there to support communities.
Yep.
And that's all our mission is. So if we ever have, I know conflicts of interest do arise sometimes, especially in this realm. So in fact, we work with communities sometimes because of conflicts of interest for other entities. And so we will never have that. It will always be, we side with whatever, jurisdiction we're working with.
Yep.
So that is a benefit. Two, we will tend to be, and oftentimes are, a lower cost alternative.
Okay.
Because we are community oriented and we are a nonprofit. We don't have a profit built into our funding model, and when we have to charge for services, it's purely to reimburse costs.
Right.
And so we're able to serve communities at a kind of a cheaper rate. And that's not always what communities are looking for, but oftentimes it is. And especially in today's climate, saving a couple of bucks is always important. And the third thing is just having those technical experts. And this is the realm we deal with all the time, right? So we have competent staff that do this for communities all the time in different parts of our region. So if you're a community out there that just has either questions or, want to know more, let us know, and we can come in and, as part of your membership, we can talk to you. We can have conversations. We can figure out what's needed. I pencil that in for a few years from now. And in addition to just getting outside funding, our affiliate partners also has funding that can also come along, and we have unique knowledge in how that funding can be spent.
Correct.
So it's a way to kind of shape that. And I have a couple of stats I'll bring up. So since our creation, MIPA's creation, there's two things I want to point out. We've secured $9 million in total funded grants for communities since inception.
Oh.
And that's since 2021. That is a 28 times return on investment for membership dues that's been paid.
Yep.
That's an average of about $2.2 million a year. Now, those funds are for communities that have requested it on a one-off basis.
Okay.
So those are like a CDBG grant for the communities I mentioned, or EDA or something like that.
Right.
In addition to that, our affiliate partners, I kind of mentioned those before, we're also responsible for those funds as well, and that's about $10 million a year.
Okay.
So in any given year, we're administering or bringing in or touching $12, $13, $14 million a year.
Right.
And so, there aren't a lot of organizations out there that can speak to that or have those kind of impacts. So that's why I say we take a holistic view of a community. We have access to funding resources, and sometimes we got to be the bearer of bad news. I think some communities have it in their head that there's grants for everything, and they're just not. They'll see something, oh, I saw that we qualify for this, and I have to be like, well,
I would say though that in my history, I think there are most likely more grants out there than most people realize.
That's true.
That
yes.
they don't seek guidance or building a relationship with someone like MIPA, or you could name any host of community foundations and organizations. I would encourage economic developers, cities, counties, communities, be in touch with your local groups, because I think there is opportunity out there, and it'd be great to at least run your projects by.
That's a good point. And so I'll even bring up an example. With CDBG, we keep talking about that. Water, sewer is an important piece. They really look at the income of populations within a community to determine eligibility for that.
Right.
And they have these numbers from the census that get put out, and communities see those numbers and they go, oh, well, we don't qualify, so we're not even going to apply. But what they don't know is that you can come in, you can do a survey of a specific part of town, and you can become eligible for funding maybe for that particular piece of an infrastructure piece than comparing it to the overall community. And they would have no idea unless they reached out to us. So those are the sorts of things that we can advise on a wide variety of things.
Good. I know that you're looking at becoming a council of governments. You want to touch on that?
Absolutely.
Maybe in a little bit of depth and what that means?
Yep. So council of governments, I kind of mentioned that previously. It is a state designation. There's a code section in state code, 28H, if anyone ever wants to go look at it. It's about 2 pages, page and a half. Pretty basic. But what that does is it does identify what the official council of governments are in the state. And so what we've run across is that 2 things. One, COGs do receive an extra benefit within certain state programs such as CDBG, where if we are a COG, then a local small community. If you're a small community, you could just hire us to go do work, and we don't have to go through the federal procurement.
Right.
As it stands right now, we got to go through those extra steps. That's just more work for the clerk. That's just more work that needs to be done that doesn't need to be done otherwise.
Okay.
And 2, it offers up additional resources through other items such as being able to access IPATE, which I know communities should be very familiar with. It's a way to hold public funds. Right now, we have a lot of different accounts and a lot of different banks to make sure that we're holding public funds properly, and that just takes time.
Right.
So if we reduce that administrative burden on that, and just in general, we get access to more resources to serve our communities, and ultimately doesn't change who we are, what we do, because right now we're structured as a council of governments right now,
Correct.
Just without being the designation. So. We already operate like we are one, so nothing about what we do or how we operate would change. We would just get those additional benefits.
Good. Well, that's exciting. Anything else you want to touch on? Your organization is involved with now, or any exciting projects coming up in the near future?
Well, we have a few different things. I mentioned the EDA applications. We're working on a couple right now.
Yep.
One's getting submitted. We have some bigger. So Story City was a great example, but we have more projects coming down the pike. They're a little bit bigger, more impactful.
Yep.
We're working with Boone, potentially on a water tower, help with their DAISY project. That DAISY project's a big regional economic impact.
Yes. Yep.
Huxley has another project coming down the pike that is a manufacturer that would be a good project for the community, and a couple others. So we just have things like that we're working on. Comprehensive plans are not the funnest necessarily things to undertake or talk about, but they are really impactful, especially considering what the communities that we work with typically haven't had a new comp plan in 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And so we come in, provide that low-cost alternative, and really help their community, 1, identify resources, but 2, also plan for the future. A lot of what you do is planning for the future. That is a very important thing to do, and a lot of communities just don't have the wherewithal to do it themselves. Right. So I look at those as very exciting and in a way to help communities be like, oh, you want to work on your downtown, just like you do, right?
Yep.
What resources are out there? How can we provide assistance? And it really feeds itself into getting more things done, because you get nothing from nothing.
And I think that's key. That's a good point to touch on. If you, in today's environment and with today's technology, if your organization, and it doesn't matter if it's a business or community, if you're not out there to be stealth shopped, you're probably not reaching your market. So I look at the comprehensive plan as organizations can stealth shop us. Anything from a family moving to town saying, I'm getting ready to buy a house or build a house. What's the land behind me going to be used for in the future? A developer who's looking at bringing a business to town or building a business park or doing a housing development, they can look at, well, how acceptive is the community for me, for my business? And they can look at that comp plan and say, okay, the community does have, they have residential one here, or they have suburban zoning here, or they have industrial zoning or commercial zoning. It allows people to stealth shop you to not have to reach out to you, and they can gain momentum. And so our community, and we do have a land use plan, but we're just in the beginning stages with our Granger Economic Development Association. How do you put a marketing plan together? And we will be reaching out. We're just now getting that plan kind of outlined so that we can reach out. I don't know if we'll do an RFP, but we'll do something like that to reach out to professionals to help us. And the reason for that is we want to answer the question, why Granger? Why would I come here? Why would I move here? If I'm a family, a business, a corporation, a church, an entity, why would I want to be in Granger, Iowa? And so...
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that stealth shopping, though, because that is something that we find. You have communities that maybe don't think as highly as we do, right, about a comp plan or
Right.
plans in general. But really what happens, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is if you're a developer or if you're looking to invest in a community, right, one, you don't want to invest in a community, won't invest in themselves.
Yep.
And you
Correct.
also have these outside forces looking to invest in a community. But if the community doesn't have a plan, like not having a plan is worse than having a bad plan, because
Yeah.
at least a bad plan, you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
The people from outside a community do not like variability. And the
Right.
less variability you can add to them, they can make the choices that they need to make. So even if you just have something, right, is better than nothing.
Yep.
And so you're right about the stealth shopping. We see that all the time.
And you don't grow as you need. But the other thing we want to utilize it for is just the transparency that the community is calling for. Is there is a push that we don't want to grow. Again, and I say this every podcast, we don't own the land. The land's going to get sold. What we've overlaid on it is a land use plan that says here's the goal for what we see this property being used for. But I can't support enough the concept of you have to get your plan out there. It has to be visible. People have to be able to look you up, and if you don't have it, they're not seeing it. And if you look at a community like ours, why is it so vital that we partner with organizations like MIPA and you get that excellence to build those plans and to make them available? We're now competing with the Metro. We're competing with Grimes and Urbandale and West Des Moines and Waukee. Now, we may not be competing very well yet, but if you can't look at our plan to find if we have that type of land use available, we're not competing. And when you look at the value of a piece of property in one part of the metro versus the value of a piece of property in our community, then they start looking at, well, what are traffic patterns? How many people live there? How many people drive by every day? And so it is key that we, small communities and larger, get your plan put together, work with organizations like MIPA, work with the state economic development. How do you get that information out there so that the developers, even the we get calls from parents, we want to move there. What's the land behind our potential house we're going to buy going to be used for? And just general information. So anything else before we wrap up you want to touch on and give a plug? I appreciate you being here. And I know that we need to be utilizing you more.
Yes, and no, thank you for having me. I think we touched on a lot of different things, and if I just want to leave anybody with anything, is that don't hesitate to ask a question of us. I think sometimes communities maybe don't want to reach out to us, but really, if we're a resource entity for everyone.
Right.
And if we don't know the answer, we can find it. We have a lot of connections with a lot of different agencies, federal, state, local, and everything in between. So I really try to encourage everyone to just reach out with a question. That's what we're here to do, is solve problems for communities.
Yeah. And again, Andrew Collings with the Mid-Iowa Planning Alliance. You can Google them, look them up. If you need help, give us a call at City Hall at Granger. And with that, I want to thank you for being here and thank our listeners. Have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Granger Podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media for updates on the next show, and we'll see you on the next episode. The Granger Podcast, empowering success and fueling growth.